All right, good afternoon. It is Friday, April 11th, and I'm actually doing this video for the third time with higher production values every time. I actually have a contraption here that's holding my cell phone at a really perfect angle to show this. So what you can see here is I have the end of a soft-loc, hi-vis, low background double tilt holder of the FEI slash ThermoFisher variety. And you can see very clearly in there, here I can tilt toward the camera a little bit here. Get this stuff out of the way. Okay, you can see very clearly there's a grid in there. There's a grid in the bottom of the basket. There's also a spacer ring, and then there's the three-pronged clip to hold it all together, okay? And so what I'm doing this video for today is I want to show you a way to disassemble this basket without the parts exploding everywhere and flying everywhere, and most importantly, your grid flying somewhere. So you can imagine, right, if your grid is an omniprobe grid like this, you have lamellas on there. If the grid, just flies somewhere, you might very easily lose your lamellas, okay? And I don't think you spent all that time on the, dual FibSem working to make the lamellas only to have them, get lost in a catastrophic instant like that, okay? So I'm gonna show you a little hack here to unload this holder to help prevent that from occurring, okay? So you will need for this hack the push tool, okay? Or something that is 3/10 of a millimeter or 300 micrometers in diameter, which is what this is. And you will also need something else with a little point on the end. Now, you could use a pair of tweezers, but I wouldn't recommend you do that, at least not with like a really sharp pair, because you may, assuming you're very gentle with this, you shouldn't cause any trauma to the tweezers. But like what I have here, this is the tool that we use for the single tilt holder to open the clamp on that. So this would work well. And you can see the end is, rounded off already, so, I don't have to worry about like damaging something that's super sharp. But you could use a pair of tweezers with this as well. And if you're careful, I don't think you will cause any problems with that, okay? All right, so anyways, let me first of all explain what not to do, okay? So what I've heard of some people doing to unload this type of holder, which I really don't recommend you do, is now right now I have it facing up right now, okay? If I rotate it upside down, okay, now right there, you can see very clearly, okay, there's the hole where the push tool goes to push the clip out, okay? So what I've heard of people doing and seen some videos even of people doing is they will turn this all the way upside down like this. They will put the poke tool in like that, and they will poke that through and explode all of those parts in a haphazard manner into preferably some kind of a container, right? I don't have a container here to catch anything, but that's what people will do to unload this, okay? I don't recommend you do that, at least if you want to avoid some kind of trauma to your grids, okay? Don't recommend you do that. That's going to be very catastrophic. Your grid is going to come shooting out of there at, a pretty good clip. And again, the likelihood that you will, cause loss of your lamellas is very high, okay? So I don't recommend that you do this. Even with like a support film grid, I wouldn't suggest you do this either. Because again, depending on how the grid lands, if it lands with the film facing down on the surface, those films are sticky and they can rip and tear very easily. So again, this is a very chaotic way, if you will, of an uncontrolled, that's a better word. This is a very uncontrolled way of unloading the holder, okay? So I don't recommend you do this. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, why don't we'll keep it right side up, okay? keep it right side up, and now I can come in from the back here, right? I have to find the hole here. This is a little tricky here. Okay, but right now I'm in the hole. I'm not gonna do this, but if I kept pushing, right, I could come from the back. Well, what's gonna happen? Well, it's just gonna explode, you know, vertically now. It's gonna explode upwards instead of downwards. It's really not much better in terms of the end result. Although I guess if you explode it downwards into a container, you have a little bit more control about where everything goes, but the same thing is gonna happen, okay? So you might think, well, why would the grid fly out of there? You know, just empirically, this is what I've seen, is that grid, even though it's down there, even though gravity is keeping it down, when you unload it like that, the tension from the clip, when you unload it, just it transfers in, and there's a recoil, and the grid will come out of there too, okay? So I don't recommend you do this either. So what can we do? Well, if we want to avoid the uncontrolled release of the clip, what we need to do is we need to actively restrict it while it is being released, okay? So with your right hand, presumably, because I'm guessing most of you watching this are right-handed, although I think even if you are, well, that's not true. You could rotate this whole setup 180 degrees, and then you could use your left hand to use the poke tool. So, but so I guess you could swap hand instructions here if you happen to be left-handed. So anyways, with your right hand, you're gonna come underneath and find the hole, okay? But now your other hand, you're gonna use the tool of your choice. So in this case, I have the tool for the single tilt holder clamp, and you're just gonna gently push down on one of these back prongs of the three-prong clip. Now, not the front, of course, because that's where the poke tool is coming from, okay? That's the clip that's gonna get released. So you don't wanna push here, because that would defeat the purpose. But you can gently push back here. Now, let me be very clear about this. Gently push, okay? You don't wanna push hard with this, okay? So you can actually see here from the side, right here, that's a great shot, right there, okay? These are the sapphire screws that enable the beta tilt axis, and if you push too hard on this basket, excuse me, you will break those screws, okay? Costs about $3 grand to fix that. Costs, a couple weeks, if not more, of downtime, okay? You don't want to do that, okay? You want to avoid that. So again, you want to push very lightly while you're doing this on the basket with your other hand, okay? So just very, very lightly, okay? And then I can come from underneath here, find the hole. It's a little tricky here because I have the camera in the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, and I'm just gonna gently push up. There we go, okay? So now you can see, okay, that the three-prong clip is loose, but it didn't explode everywhere, and the grid didn't go anywhere either, okay? So now at this point, I can disassemble this by just using regular tweezers, or what is preferable actually is vacuum tweezers. So let me actually, now I have a little box under here, an anti-static box. I'm gonna put right underneath, and let me turn on the vacuum tweezers here, which I highly recommend you have at your lab. And now I can just pick up the clip. Right, now you can see very clearly, okay? The spacer's still there, the grid is still there, they haven't gone anywhere, okay? And then I can pull off the spacer, right? Grid is still there. And lastly, I can pull off the grid, okay? And set that down as well, okay? And I have disassembled the grid now in a way that is nice and controlled, or at least more controlled than it would have been, using one of the other two approaches here, okay? So let me go ahead and just reassemble this, because this is exactly the safest place for where you want your spacer ring, and your three-prong clip is is on the basket. Okay, you get those back two prongs situated, and then you can just snake the front prong forward here. Oops. There we go. Okay, and that's it. So that's my short. Now this is just a dummy grid. There's nothing on it. Okay, I don't have a lamella on there. Just doing this for demo purposes. But that's the quick hitter video I wanted to do. Again, third take of my little hack to avoid the phenomenon that I like to refer to as the exploding soft-loc double tilt holder basket phenomenon. Okay, so hope you're having an awesome Friday, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, take care, everyone.